Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the session of the Building with Better Data series from Blue Street Data. I'm Kate Gallo. I'll be your moderator and host today. I'm the head of marketing here at Blue Street Data, and I'm joined by two lovely data experts, Malcolm Hawker and Andy Hanna. Today, we're going to dig into the phrase AI ready, which I'm sure everyone has heard lots of times on LinkedIn and articles all across the web. We'll explore what it means for your team and for your data as well, and any AI initiatives and projects that you're rolling out. So to start off, I'm going to hand it over to Malcolm and then Andy for some short introductions, and then we'll get started.
Thanks so much, Kate. And it is my honor to be here today supporting Blue Street Data and figuring out what AI ready really means. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I am the Chief Data Officer of Profisee. We make MDM, Master Data Management Software. I've been in this role for about 3 years. I got the greatest job in the world. I get to go speak at conferences around the world and write white papers and LinkedIn posts and be the eyes and face of Profisee in the market. Prior to that, I was an analyst at Gartner for a number of years, writing quadrants of magic and cycles of hype and all sorts of fun things like that. I have been a vendor, I've been an analyst, I have been an IT leader, I've implemented governance, MDM, you name it in the data space, I've probably done it. Absolutely thrilled to be here today.
Great to have you with us, Malcolm. Always a pleasure. And when Kate talks about lovely, she definitely means you and not me. So, so great to be here. So my quick background, I'm Andy Hanna. I'm CEO of Blue Street Data. I've been in the data and data science space for 30 years now, starting out my career with actually mining data out of the former Soviet Union back in the 1990s and learning about the value of data way back then. And right before Blue Street Data, I co-founded a company focused on AI and higher education and using data science effectively to predict students' behavior. And so after that company, I decided I want to get back into startup land, and we started building Blue Street Data to help companies figure out how to find the best data at the lowest price, highest quality, most trust. And so that's what we do.
Thanks to you both, and thank you again, Malcolm, for joining us today. We're excited to have you on with us. So before we start with the questions for today, I want to remind everyone in the audience, throughout the session, you can ask questions with the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Those questions will come into me or our panelists, and I'll make sure to ask Malcolm and Andy at the end of our session today in the last 5 or so minutes. So to start off, let's set the stage. Malcolm and Andy, tell us what your thoughts are on the current state of data teams, what's going well and what isn't. And Malcolm, I'm going to hand that off to you first.
So the current state of data teams, quite frankly, is the same as it's been, I would argue, for most teams over the last 10 to 15 years. The current state of most data teams is solid, I would say, and is relatively predictable. And for better or worse, not changing probably as fast as they should when it comes to AI. These are things we're going to talk about today, but I would argue the state of most data teams is that they should be in a state of disruption. They should be in a state of change. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing a lot of is the status quo. And what would that change look like? Talk about that a little bit more, I think, in depth today. But there's a lot of things that data leaders could be doing, but I think many are continuing to focus on foundations, right? Continuing to double down on governance and data quality. And these are good things, but the definition of those things, I would argue, is changing. So I think the state of most data teams is relatively stable, for better or worse, maybe a little bit for the worse, because I think we probably should be in a state of change.
I would add to that. So here's what I see that's a little bit different recently. And I should mention I'm on faculty at the University of Pittsburgh, where I also chair our advisory board for responsible data science. I get to see a lot sort of under the covers sometimes. And I was invited to go to a conference internal conference over at Carnegie Mellon University. And one of the things I'd love to see is this conference was sort of a cross-functional discussion of data people from different parts of the organization and analytics people, I would say, who are figuring out how to use their data to get good outcomes for the university. And so, Malcolm, that's one of the things I think, and it's probably more grassroots than anything else, which is sort of wanting to understand, who's using data, their data, and why, and whether or not people are getting good outcomes from it.
I love it. And I'm going to give you props for correctly pronouncing Carnegie. Just FYI, my Scottish grandmother would be very, very pleased to hear that I was in a conversation with somebody who actually said Carnegie, the correct way. Um, but that aside, yeah, I think there's certainly a focus on, okay, how do we kind of attach ourselves to the AI bandwagon? But what I'm seeing is that, hey, there's AI. Finally, we can maybe justify some stewardship resources. Hey, there's AI. Maybe we can go invest in a data catalog. Hey, there's AI. Let's go do Databricks. But I would argue a lot of those things are very much status quo-y, right? And very much an investment in BI and less of an investment in AI.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep, that's great. And speaking of AI, the term AI ready has been in almost every single LinkedIn post I've seen on my feed for a couple months now. And so I want to ask the two of you sort of what is your working definition of AI readiness in the context of enterprise level data strategy, and why is it different from just general digital transformation? Andy, maybe I'll pass that one off to you first.
Yeah, sure. So when I think about AI readiness, I think about sort of a very traditional layer cake where you have the desired outcomes on the top layer, right? So what is the reason why we're using that AI? In the middle ground, you have the models that we're using, regardless of the type of technology you're using. And then at the bottom of that layer cake, you have the data, both internal data from your own systems, plus external data that we're either buying or ingesting in. And I think the best organizations I've seen that really are pushing AI forward is aligning those three things and having a feedback loop amongst sort of the data people and the data science people and the business people. And so if you're going to be AI ready, I think you have to have that feedback loop into place so that you can then scale AI across the organization.
Yeah, completely and totally agree. What I'm seeing from an AI readiness perspective is really kind of two separate things. One is AI, the talk of AI ready data, which is dominating many conversations. But then there is the AI ready organization, and I don't think we're having. And Andy, you kind of touched on this, but I don't think we're having nearly enough conversations around the second. But let's talk about the first. My old employer, Gartner, would call AI ready data is data that most accurately represents the source in support of a given use case. That's fundamental. Just parse that. Data that represents the source in support of a specific use case, the model you're trying to build, right? That is a fundamental difference between what is BI ready data. BI ready data is the data that best adheres and conforms to a set standard, a highly deterministic standard as determined by our governance policies. So right there, you've got a massive gap between what is AI ready, data that most accurately represents the source, right? And this could be as imperfect as it is, data coming straight out of Salesforce or Oracle or wherever, versus data that conforms to a specific governance standard. That in and of itself should be this aha, wait a minute, when it comes to the AI ready organization, there's also a major gap here because everything we've been doing for 30 years is to enable BI, right? This highly deterministic, rules-driven, if-then, zeros and ones view of the world, where the AI-ready organization, I think, needs to fundamentally behave differently than it has in the past. The biggest change there is one of mindset. How do we start looking at things through a probabilistic lens instead of a deterministic lens? And that pervades everything from governance, quality, our org structures, right? How do we start thinking differently about data? And I don't hear many people talking about the AI ready organization.
No, and I love the words that you used, Malcolm. It's that you want to be next to the source. You want the complete data set, right? So
Yep.
it can't be partial. If you're source and partial, it's not going to be AI ready. And then it needs to be compared. We need to understand, are there anomalies in that data? Is it consistent? Is it comparable? those are the three things I love to talk about with CDOs and others. It's like those are the three. If you focus on those three things, that's sort of the kernel or the fundamentals, as you say, to get to AI ready data.
Yep, those are great points. And Malcolm, I think your phrasing of, there's AI ready data and then the AI ready organization are phenomenal. And that's exactly the structure of our webinar today. I want to start off with AI ready data a little bit and dig into that, and then spend a lot of time on the AI ready organization so that we put some effort and conversation towards that as well. And talking about what matters in AI ready data, I want to ask the two of you, how should an organization measure its current AI readiness? I think measuring data quality and AI readiness is difficult, but I'm eager to hear what both of you say on that.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Eddie.
So what I would start with is a lot of people don't know that there's an organization called Oasis Open. Many of you probably know that organization. It's a standard setting body. And right now there are a group of, I'd say about 20 companies, 10 sponsoring a technical committee at Oasis Open that set the standards, the data provenance standards around data so that we can get better AI, better analytics outcomes. And there's about 22 different factors that relate to the data. Like, how do you know whether or not that data matches a standard? So what is the source? What is the refresh rate? What is the privacy issues? What is the legality issues in terms of the geography of where that data is acquired? What is the use of that? And so when you have standards, now you can start to have a level playing field. Now you can understand, A, is one set of data better than another, but also, are you going to be able to ingest it in the way that you want to quickly and get the results you want because you're following those standards?
So in the world of certainly in the world of third-party data in the space that Blue Street plays in, couldn't agree more, Andy. The need for transparency in the market for data, the marketplace for data is greater than it's ever been, and that's why I'm so excited to partner with you guys and to help kind of figure this out. Because you need the lineage, you need the history, you need quality metrics, you need quality standards, you need all of that if you're going to be spending, millions of dollars on data from providers. When it comes to the data that we create internally, how do you know it's AI ready? Kate, you ask, how do you measure it? This is a really hard problem because I think that there are objective measures, right? There's measures around completeness. There are, to your point, Andy, there's traceability, there's explainability. Where did it come from? There's the lineage. But when it comes to quality, quality to me is the really, really hard problem to solve because historically with BI, we could assess quality in a vacuum. We could assess, does this objectively look correct, right? Is this record from Malcolm Hawker correct? Do I have the information? Is that correct? I think in a world of AI, often quality, we will only know if it's quality once it's been consumed by a downstream model, right? So these are two very, very different worlds. You can assess quality, one, in a vacuum, in advance of the data, or even independently of the data ever being used. But in an AI world, in many cases, you're only going to know once it's used by that specific model. And if you're a creator of data, how will you know, right? You'll need to be deeply intertwined with the data science function when they're creating these models. You need to be intertwined both pre-production and
Absolutely.
post-production, to be testing all the time. Is everything behaving? The combination of data plus the models, is it behaving as you expected it? Not even pre, but like as things change and evolve in the world. So again, a very, very different operating model here.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry, Kate. I'm gonna go a little off the script here a little bit, but I'm just curious, Malcolm. The concept of single source of truth, and this is a conversation that I love to have with people. It's just like, what is your feeling in terms of the importance of, or is it something that is something we're always striving for, or does it miss the fringe data sets? Like, how do you think about single source of
Oh
truth?
my gosh. Well, so first of all, I want to acknowledge that I work for an MDM company, and I'm an MDM guy. I even see Ed Longo from Ropes and Gray, one of our clients. Good to see you, Ed. Thanks for joining today. When it comes to single source of truth, I think we need to acknowledge something we've always known, but have had a hard time, I think, acknowledging. The notion of truth is contextually bound.
Yes.
Okay. And there are multiple contexts in any given business, roughly aligning to functional, cross-functional, enterprise-wide. If you just cut things through in those three layers, functional, there could be a truth here. Cross-functional, that truth could be slightly different. The way that marketing looks at the world is slightly different than finance needs to look at the world if they're measuring quote to cash. Then there's enterprise-wide, and the truth could be even different there. Within any bounded context, there can be only one version of truth within any one context. If your CEO asks, how many customers do we have? There's only one answer to that question. And trust me, friends, you don't want to be the data provider that says, well, what do you mean? Who's asking, right? Particularly if the CEO asks. So is MDM still relevant? Is a single source of truth still relevant? Absolutely, positively, yes, because you need to be able to provide that answer to that question. However, who is asking is highly relevant. And the use case supported is also highly relevant. That's what we need to evolve to, right? Single source, yes, absolutely. One place to go ask that question, I think, is efficient and necessary. Single version, no longer true. There are
Yeah.
multiple versions of the truth, and we as data practitioners need to be able to support multiple versions of truth based on context.
Context. Yeah.
The hard part here, the hard part is that instead of one set of governance rules, there will now be N sets of governance rules. That's the really hard part here.
Sorry, Kate, back
That's
to
great.
you.
No, that's great. That was a great question. All right, so I want to flip to talking more about AI-ready teams. We spent a little bit of time on AI-ready data, and now I want to flip to teams. So we hear often, about the talent gap in data and AI with how quickly things are evolving. And to Andy first, and then Malcolm, how should data leaders be thinking about upscaling or restructuring their current teams to address immediate needs and then changing needs of AI as time goes on?
Yeah, I think this is a really relevant question right now, especially for those of us attached to higher education and to developing teams. It's what are the skill sets that we can bring into the workforce that help those individuals prepare for a new reality. Because so many of these jobs at the data entry level, as an example, are disappearing, as we know. And that means we have a responsibility for upskilling, for helping those individuals. And so how do we give them more skill sets? How do we develop analytic skills for those individuals, as an example, so that they can do more than what data entry was? This is a workforce change that's happening right before our eyes. I would say we also have to think about that in the context of upskilling existing people with responsible data science skills, which means that they need to understand that what they're doing in whatever part of the AI development program that they're in, they need to think responsibly about how people are impacted by the outputs of those models. So what I would say is that we focus on giving more skills to those who are doing lower level jobs, and we give more responsible data science skills to those further up in the organization to make sure that we're able to use these tools in a very positive way as opposed to a harmful way.
Yeah, I very much agree, particularly from an org-wide perspective. I view AI kind of like a large kind of construction project that you've seen play out in your city or your town, right? Where they set up, the project to widen the road, right? And they'll spend, and they need to widen the road because it was congested. And then they widen the road 2 years later, and it's still congested. I think AI is very much like this, right? As we increase our productivity, we're going to do more and we're going to want more, and our needs will increase. So yes, of course, there will be certain jobs that are disrupted here. I think that's inevitable, but I think our productivity is going to increase so much so that we're going to need roles in other positions. What would those roles look like? I think specifically when you're looking at a data and analytics function, we absolutely positively need more product management. We need more people who are sitting down with our business partners, developing creative solutions, being more like an analyst or even more like a consultant to our business partners to say, hey, we've got the data that suggests you could be doing A differently or B differently. But you're only going to be able to have that conversation if you are a domain expert, if you know how the business is using your data and consuming it day in and day out. That's why I'm so kind of pro product management. Product managers tend to think this way. They tend to think through the lens of business problems and developing business solutions. So I think there will be short-term disruption. Of course there will. It's inevitable. But we also need to find opportunities for us to behave a little bit more like consultants. And I think when we do that, our business partners will turn to us and will want our insights because we'll be able to translate all of the complexity that exists in this data into ways that are meaningful to them.
That's great. So I mean, just repeating back what you said, Malcolm. So you got product management thinking, you got change management, right?
Yep.
Because it's a different way of doing it, right? So I mean, I think that that's another critical piece to it. And then what I would add on to that is the people who, and you said this, but I'm going to call them analytics translators or, AI translators. So the ones that can understand the technical side of the house and understand the business side of the house. Domain experience is exactly what you need, but those people able to bridge those two gaps, I think are going to be incredibly valuable as we go forward.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's great. And so for those people, Andy, I think you called them analytics translators. What is the best way to quantify and communicate tangible business value from any of the AI initiatives or projects that are ongoing? I think that's something that from those more analytical team members that understand what's going on, communicating it to the executive team is obviously really important. So what's the best way to tell that story? And Malcolm, I'll hand that off to you first.
Well, the best way to tell that story is through the lens of process reengineering, reimagining different ways to do things because of AI. What I think we're seeing now with a lot of these 95% of POCs failing, a lot of this doom and gloom around no ROI of these investments in Gen AI, I don't believe that for a second. But if those things are true, they're true because we're throwing AI at legacy processes that are seeing a dubious benefit of automation, right? And there's use case after use case here where we are throwing a lot of money and a lot of AI at existing business processes, whether they're call center related, whether you're taking an order at Taco Bell, doesn't matter. What that says to me is we need desperately to start re-engineering our processes. That's absolutely true within the data and analytics function itself. If we start throwing AI at our traditional data management approaches, data quality, data integration, BI, I don't think we're going to see a lot of transformational benefits there. We'll see some automation, but not a lot of transformational benefits. We need to start rethinking how we manage our data. Data quality is a great example. If data quality is the degree to what data is fit for purpose, or ultimately, Kate, to your point, data quality is strictly viewed through the lens of did it drive a business outcome? That's very different than looking at data quality through traditional quality dimensions of uniqueness, accuracy, completeness. Did it drive the outcome we want? That's an example of two very different ways of looking at data quality. One is status quo. The other is a re-engineering of how we measure things. That's where we need to be looking.
Agreed. And then I would add on top of that, what I still see is the difficulty that managers have in storytelling. So it's translating why the data quality matters in relation to the output. Let me tell you the story about what happens if you don't do that and what we realized once we did do that. And there's book after book, there's training class after training class about storytelling. And I think that we really need to help managers and those who are responsible for these programs to really understand how to tell that story, especially to the executive level who doesn't have the time to read a 12-page brief or doesn't have the time to sit in an hour-long meeting. It's like, tell me the quick story so that I can see the impact that data quality has on the outcome.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great. We have time for one more question for both of you. So I'm going to throw this one out here. Maybe you both can give a magic answer to a very large and complex question. What is one high impact, low cost foundational step that someone can take to improve data quality for AI without investing in new platforms?
Please, Malcolm, you go first.
Well, so one, This may sound a little pithy, but I fundamentally believe it. One is start calling our customers customers. They're not stakeholders. They're not the business. They're not the people over there. They're our customers. We desperately need to be more customer and outcome driven. And I think just calling our customers customers and taking a very service oriented way of approaching data and analytics, I think that will go a long, long way. I'm not saying service desk. I'm not saying like take a ticket. I'm talking service. If there is no customer, there is no data and analytics function, and there's no need for AI. So we need to be rapidly focused on customer success. I think that will go a long way. Another kind of thing is to stop looking at data quality through the lens of garbage in, garbage out. I'm in a very active discussion on LinkedIn around this. Something I talk about in my book, the Data Hero Playbook. I would argue garbage in, garbage out is a complete platitude and is largely useless because it's a very deterministic, reductionistic way of looking at the world. We need to look at the world through this probabilistic lens. What might be good to marketing may be good to or bad to finance, and both things can be true at the same time.
So I'm going to build on that and actually do a callback to what you said earlier in the episode, Malcolm, which is the business process reengineering. So if you have to do anything, it's sort of, to me, it's like having that customer success focus that Malcolm talks about, and then mapping back to the process to deliver the value to that customer. And that map, once you start to map, once you understand where the source is of what's driving, what that fuel is going into the engine, you start to think about the business process differently. Am I getting the highest quality, the right data, the provenance that we need in order to drive the outcomes? And I think that that's something that you can do at a micro level too. You don't have to do that across the entire organization. It's pick a use case and go through that process, and you will see that, wow, that's incredibly powerful when I can map back, when I can do that business process reengineering.
And what I would add on that, I know we're coming up on time. Just to kind of paraphrase what I heard you say, Andy, is be agile, right? Take an MVP approach, carve something into its smallest chunk of value and focus on that. This is very much the companies that I'm seeing succeed with AI are taking that approach. The companies that are not succeeding are the ones that are taking very framework driven, these very kind of like, I need to go figure out data quality and data governance before I can even think about AI. No, everybody, and this gets back to the idea of being AI ready and people not really knowing, we're figuring this stuff out as we go. Right. And the best way to do that is to keep things small, MVP, be very, very agile, solve a specific business problem, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. The frameworks are helpful. They kind of help you understand what good looks like. But the companies that I'm seeing succeed in the AI space are making small incremental steps, and they're not putting these gigantic, framework overhauls as a critical step in that AI journey.
Ooh, love it. So go back to what you said earlier, and I reiterated, but it's product thinking,
Yes.
change management, and do it in an innovative fashion, right? So that agile fashion. So that sounds very much like a startup, Malcolm. That's how startups think, right? That's products, change management, make it different, do it in an innovative way.
Well, and it's every 5 to 6 years, our companies keep turning to us and in essence saying, hey, I need you to incubate a startup in the data function, right? Whether that was digital transformation 5 years ago, now it's AI. They keep coming back to us and say, we need you to be a lever of innovation in our organization, right? Because they keep seeing over and over again the latent potential that is sitting within data. So it behooves us, yeah, absolutely, to behave that way. To throw out the status quo, to throw out these giant frameworks, and to find a way to just deliver value. Love it. Start it.
That's great. Thank you both so much for your opinions, your thoughts today, and your experience. So we're right at the end of our time. 2 quick reminders. We will be sending out the recording of this so that you can watch this later. I'm going to send a free resource from our team, the Data Buyer's Guide. We developed this within the last year or so on a step-by-step process for evaluating data quality and procuring high quality data. And then Malcolm Hawker just released his book a couple months ago, The Data Hero Playbook. So make sure you go check that out on Amazon. It's a great book. Yep, there it is. Thank you both again, Malcolm and Andy, for your time today. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks so much for
Thanks,
having me.
Malcolm. Thank you, Kate. We'll see you
Thanks
all
all.
soon. Okay,
Bye,
bye-bye.
guys.
Bye for now.